Start without Brian. I can't vote without him. Good morning. The House Education Committee will come to order. Mr. Clerk, would you please take attendance?
Chair Hornberger.
Here.
Representatives Paquette.
Here.
Green.
Present.
Markkinen.
Here.
O'Malley.
Here.
Beeler.
Here.
Demus.
Here.
Postumus. Camilleri.
Here.
Carter.
Here.
Colazar.
Here.
Shannon.
Present.
Stone.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. We need a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting on October 19th. Representative Markkinen makes that motion. Without objection, so ordered. First thing we're going to do is take some testimony on House Bills 4447 from Representative Tate and 4448 from me. We have several people that are going to come to the table and testify. I think Rep. Tate and I will probably go first, and it'll be very brief. And the people following us will be much more interesting. So I'm going to let Rep. Paquette step over here, and I'll meet you at the table. Sorry, I didn't want my code.
Take it away when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Vice Chairs, members of the committee, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to testify on my bill today. This is just another step in the process to reopen a higher institution of higher learning that is also a historically black college and university, the only one in the state of Michigan. And I believe for me, and the intent is for two reasons. One is we all know the data, we all understand the opportunities of moving up the social mobility ladder and what opportunities that you do receive through college and certifications past high school. So that's the first part for reopening Lewis College of Business. The second part is around our shared history. The Pencil Lewis College of Business and Design, there is just so much history around the state of Michigan, not only for African Americans moving up the social mobility ladder, but also for the rest of our state too, and the talent that came out of that and went to places such as GM and at the time Detroit Edison, now DTE. So I think this is a real opportunity for us, and I will let Rep. Hornberger, I'll turn it over to her, and looking forward to hearing from our subject matter experts on this. Thank you.
And I am so happy to join Rep. Tate in this endeavor. When I met with the people from Pencil and College for Creative Studies a few weeks ago, it was eye-opening. The process that's going to be involved in students receiving these credentials and degrees. I think it is a historic opportunity for Detroit, for our students. And quite honestly, I'm super excited being a former design major, which I don't think any of you guys know that. I have my first degree is from Michigan State, and it is in fashion design. I have a teaching certificate from Wayne, and I have a master's degree in administration. But knowing that process of being a creative person and a student operating in that space, and knowing what they're going to offer our students is completely different than what I received. Kids are going to have this immersed, hands-on experience and be able to, step into that space immediately, designing clothing, shoes, furniture. It is a world-class opportunity that we're going to have right here in Detroit, and it is just an amazing opportunity for our students. And I couldn't be happier to partner with you in this. And I'm so thrilled that you guys are here to give them much more information than we can. So you lead the way. Does anyone have any questions for us?
Comment from Rep. Carter, the chair, even from the witness stand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Tate, Representative Hornsberger. Thank you.
Let's get there.
All right, Madam Chair, come on up.
We have joining us. I got to be able to read. Dr. Dwayne Edwards, the President and Director of Pencil Lewis College of Business and Design. Do you guys want to come up together, or does it matter? Sure. You can all come up. Donald Tusky is the President of College for Creative Studies. Ann Beck, Treasurer and Director of Pencil Lewis College of Business and Design. So take it away whenever you're ready.
All right. We were supposed to have a presentation. Do you know how it?
It went? Okay. Yeah. Let me mess around for a sec. Is it this one?
Yes.
Heck yeah. Okay.
That's the spirit.
There we go. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's go here. Share screen. Should be this one. Share. And go there. Okay. So now you guys should be able to go through it.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for meeting with us today. I will share a few slides just about a little bit about my background in the academy and the vision for the new college. So just quickly about my background, I am a 32-year veteran of the design industry. When I entered into the industry in 1989, I was only the second African American in the entire industry to design footwear. I went on to design shoes for several amazing athletes that probably people in Detroit don't want to hear about because they have some negative experiences with some of those guys. But after spending so many years in the industry and realizing the deficit of African Americans designing footwear and in the overall design industry, I decided to walk away from the industry and open my own academy, and specifically to teach kids the ins and outs of what it takes to create footwear and hopefully with the opportunity to get employment as well. Our academy is based in Portland, Oregon. Well, it was based in Portland, Oregon. We're moving here to Detroit. Fundamentally, we are a professional development academy where we teach footwear design, apparel design, color material design, as well as sample making, prototyping, and 3D design. Over the years, we've worked with some of these top brands. These are the companies that have supported the Academy over the years and continue to support the Academy to this day. To date, we have over 500 plus graduates that are working at most of the amazing companies around the globe. Our goal was when we started working with the kids was to provide them the insights needed, the way that they will actually work, and then translating the way they would work into opportunities of employment. And so in 11 short years, we've been able to, place all these students in these amazing organizations. And that's why the companies continue to work with us to this day. So the big issue is there's less than 5% of African Americans working in all design industries, all of them, not just footwear, but every single industry you can think of from a design perspective. And really the root of the issue starts at middle school and high school with more than half of the middle schools and high schools art is no longer part of the curriculum. So therefore, these kids have nothing else to do but to get in trouble and do other things besides expressing themselves creatively. And then that directly translates into the lack of enrollment of African Americans in colleges. So in the U.S., there's 96 traditional design schools and colleges in the U.S. with only an average of 9% African American enrollment. Half of those kids drop out. after their sophomore and junior year. That leaves little less than 2% graduating because half of those students are split between art students and design students. So therefore, you have this entire industry of design that has a small number of kids to pull from every single year for employment opportunities. And that's a lot of reasons why they call us. So now the next logical path is for these industries to look at historically black colleges and universities. Well, of the 101 of them, only 9 of them have a design major, and none of them have a singular focus or even a dedicated focus on design. And that's what we're looking to actually provide, primarily because the industry is we've already been doing that for the last 11 years. Since last year's events, our number of brands that have asked us to participate in programming specifically targeted towards diverse candidates have tripled. And as you can see on the board here, these are a list of the companies. And you'll see that they're not just footwear companies, they are retailers, they are apparel companies, they're even manufacturing companies like Procter & Gamble and PepsiCo. The entire industry is suffering from a lack of opportunity for employment, being able to hire and identify these students. Last year, I was made aware of Lewis College of Business in Detroit. Fell in love with the story of Violet T. Lewis and the school itself. As Representative Tate mentioned, the school was instrumental in Detroit's history of employing black office employees in the 40s and 50s. And then that legacy continued, but unfortunately it closed its doors in 2013. But prior to closing, it was designated an HBCU in 1987, making Violet T. Lewis, who founded the college, the third African-American woman to found any HBCU that has ever been created. Her story has been hidden in the record books. It's sad that people don't know who this woman was. But our goal is to not only bring back the legacy and history of Violet T. Lewis, but also the college itself here in the city of Detroit. So ultimately, we started working with the family and agreed to acquire the college and bring it back. Bring the college back as both a design college for business, college for business, but also design as well. This is just a quick logo exploration of how we're evolving the college visually. So we changed all the colors to represent shades of violet to honor the founder, the original founder of the college. And you can see the new crest and the new emblem of what we're looking to implement from the college. Then we were blessed with an opportunity to work with Dr. Tusky and Ms. Beck with the opportunity of partnering with College for Creative Studies to really leverage the rich history that CCS has already had for many, many decades here in the city of Detroit, is to combine forces and really enter into an agreement to create not only probably one of the larger HBCUs that exist, but also probably the most defined clearly through that path of design, giving these kids a really rich educational experience. Inevitably, we'll be the first to do a few things. We'll be the first HBCU to reopen. Of all of the 30-plus HBCUs that have closed over the last 100 years, a little less than 100 years, we'll be the only one that's going to reopen. We'll also be the first one that'll be focused on design, serving an industry that's in dire need for talent. And then we'll also be the first college that's majority free tuition college. What we've done with the academy is everything we've done up to this point have been free for all students. Corporations and organizations cover the housing and tuition for our students. And this is something that we're looking to continue as we reopen Pennsyl Lewis College of Business and Design as well. And then once we are able to come back, we'll now be added to the 5th HBCU in the Midwest. There's a few more in the Midwest, but we're looking to be added to that list. We are starting off with a great foundation. Our founding partners are the Gilbert family of companies. The Gilbert Family Foundation with Dan and Jennifer Gilbert. Target Corporation as well. Target has a $100 million commitment focused on HBCUs, and we're a part of that gift, as well as with College for Creative Studies. We also have additional sponsors here in the state of Michigan with Herman Miller. They love what we're doing. We're going to create the first of its kind, a furniture design program, as well as Herman Miller has contributed all of the furniture that we need to furnish the entire college as well. And then we work with the largest athletic retailer in the world, which is Foot Locker, one of the large communication companies in Edelman, and then Haynes Corporation as well, is going to fund a big part of the college. Should I continue or just? Sure. So really quick, I know we're running short on time, but really quick, we will, the plans are to reopen the college officially in March. We'll, in partnership with CCS, we'll be housed in the Taubman Center building. While we're housed in that facility, we'll be looking to take some of the funds that we're getting from the Gilbert Family Foundation and Target and some other donors to start working towards building our own new campus that will be close to CCS as well. And then ultimately, the college will focus on these 3 lanes of education, the business side, beginning with the strategy and understanding of what to create. Then the design in the middle is the design side, is once we understand what the business of creation is, then we create those products. And then the last piece is the manufacturing side. We are building a footwear factory in New Hampshire that will move to Detroit in 4 years. So kids will be able to get the whole cycle from the beginning side of business, understanding the design, and all the way through to manufacturing as well. These are just some of the family members that are involved. The original grandkids from Violet T. Lewis, they both serve on our board, as well as advisors for the college to maintain that we're following through with the legacy that Violet T. Lewis created from the very beginning. And then this is a snapshot of all the brands that we'll start to work with starting in 22 and then also 23. All of those companies I showed you earlier in the earlier slide, they've all signed on to create programming that are all sponsored programs for these kids here in the city of Detroit. And I will stop there.
Go ahead, Rep. Kim.
I wasn't sure if others wanted to speak before we're doing questions, but
Go ahead.
okay. So first of all, I want to say thank you. I am a former educator in the city of Detroit, and when I taught high school students in Detroit, primarily Black and Latino kids in Southwest, one of the areas that I knew was lacking was a program like the one that you're proposing. So I'm very thankful because I know a lot of my former students would have certainly benefited from something like this, but I'm excited that they will have an opportunity, for future students will have an opportunity to potentially go to this school and I think really create a brand new educational industry and economic industry in the city of Detroit. My question really is around the HBCU status. So not many folks are familiar with the benefits of what an HBCU status can give to the institution. Can you just explain a little bit about some of the type of federal funding and any other type of support that could be received by the HBCU designation?
Sure. You want to take that or you want me to? All right. All right. So, all right. Thank you. So there are currently about 101 HBCUs that are designated by the U.S. government. They receive a certain pot of money every single year, and it's divided up by all of the institutions. I'm not sure what the current number is today, but will be added to that list of 101 colleges. So we'll start to receive that additional funding. Historically, HBCUs have been poorly funded over the years, which is one of the reasons why Lewis did close, and also the reason why some of the others have closed in the past as well. But that additional funding will further elevate us into the already existing strong funding that we have from our private donors as well.
Representative Stone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you speak to how many students a year are admitted into each class?
Yes, for 22, we're looking to serve about 300 kids for the year. Our format is a bit different than normal schools, like CCS, where our focus is a lot more on working direct with industry, and we co-create curriculum with that industry. So their focus is more about a targeted, more focused group of students to pull from for opportunities of employment. So for us, it's not really how many kids will be enrolled, it's the quality of the kids that will be enrolled and being able to turn them out to be able to actually be in line for internships and jobs. So for us, it's less about number of enrollment, but it's the quality of the enrolled kids that come out of the college. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Edwards, and thank you for having us here. This is really an exciting moment, and I'm going to reiterate the historical moment I feel really lucky and honored to be here regarding this wonderful opportunity for the state of Michigan. I'm going to first thank again Dr. Edwards. I've collaborated with Dr. Edwards in the past, and it's really great to be back with him in Detroit. And but I do want to thank Ann Beck here, who's done a lot of work with our great team from Clark Hill, as well as with Dr. Edwards, to really bring a lot of things together that to a point where we could sit here and talk today about what we'd like to do. From the CCS perspective, really see this as a joint venture and an opportunity to really do some things differently in higher ed. And Dr. Edwards and Pencil have really brought a lot of insight into how students learn, and the connection to the industry has been really helpful. We do the same thing, but in a different way. We think there's a real opportunity for us to really collaborate, to bring our strengths together, to really create some opportunities for a wide range of students from Detroit, from Michigan, and beyond, to have a better opportunity for more design and art education, to go into the fields of design, and we need more good design in the world. So this opportunity is really just fantastic, and I'm really thankful for us to be here. We also are going to serve as a sort of operations and support for Pencil Lewis. As Dr. Edwards said, we're starting this year in our facilities in the Taubman Center in Detroit, and Herman Miller is going to build that out for Pencil, which we're excited about. So we see this as a really great opportunity for a joint venture to really do some things differently in higher ed and be more accessible to a wider range of students together. So I'll stop there and take any questions, and Ann certainly will take some questions as well.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Rep. Carter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I am just totally elated. I am a native Detroiter, okay? And I've seen some of the devastation in our community. And to know that there's a college that's going to give our young people an opportunity to use their hands and then have maybe the career that they dreamed of right there for them. So I applaud all of you for bringing this to us, and I definitely applaud Rep. Tate and Rep. Hornberger for introducing this. Thank you. I'm full. Thank you.
All right, no further questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I now need a motion to report House Bill 5447. Representative DeMoose makes that motion. Mr. Clerk, would you please take that vote?
Motion to report with recommendation, Chair Hornberger.
Yes.
Representatives Paquette,
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Markkinen,
Yes.
O'Malley,
Yes.
Beeler,
Yes.
DeMoose.
Yes.
Postumus,
Yes.
Camilleri.
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Colzar,
Yes.
Shannon.
Yes.
Stone.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 13 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 pass. House Bill 5447 is reported with recommendation.
Excellent. Next, we need a motion to report with recommendation House Bill 5448. Representative O'Malley makes that motion. Mr. Clerk, would you please take that vote?
On the motion to report, Madam Chair,
Yes.
Representatives Paquette,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Markkinen,
Yes.
O'Malley,
Yes.
Beeler,
Yes.
DeMoose.
Yes.
Postumus.
Yes.
Camilleri.
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Colzar,
Yes.
Shannon,
Yes.
Stone.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 13 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 pass. House Bill 5448 is reported with recommendation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you. Next up, we have House Bill 5190 from Representative Farrington.
Good morning.
Good morning. Oops.
Oh, this table's close.
I know.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. I am very excited to testify on House Bill 5190, which would provide all our students with an opportunity to take a course in personal finance. The bill amends the merit curriculum by adding a new half-credit personal finance class, beginning with students entering the 8th grade in 2023. Like other requirements in the MMC, the department would develop the course, and the state board would approve it. In order to keep the total amount of credits at 18, the bill reduces the foreign language requirement from 2 credits to 1.5 credits. That's what the bill does, pretty simple, but I want to talk a little bit about why I'm doing it. First, I believe personal finance and financial education are crucial to the success of every young person in our state. But sadly, if you're not learning it at home or teaching it to yourself, it can be a topic that you miss completely. Financial education is important to building a set of skills and good habits that will you use in everyday life. Imagine if you didn't require driver's training before issuing a license to a 16-year-old. Think about how unprepared the child is going to be when they get behind the wheel. Now realize that we will allow an 18-year-old to take on tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt that can follow them for decades with no real preparation. We see the fallout of this getting worse every year. Student loan and credit card debt are sky high. The mortgage crisis, defaults on auto loans, not saving for retirement. We are struggling because we aren't addressing the actual issue. The economy and our financial world have become a more complicated place, and we are simply feeding young people to the wolves. I understand that this is not a simple fix. Changing the graduation requirements is difficult for schools, teachers, and students. But I also think it's time to start talking about the importance of financial education and to start taking action that will have a positive impact on the future of our students. Madam Chair, I am done with my testimony, and as you stated so eloquently before, there are several people behind me that are much more interesting on the topic, so I will leave it to them.
Just one second. Rep. Colazar, can your question wait? Is it for Rep. Farrington? Do you want to?
It is for Rep. Farrington.
Okay, excellent. Go ahead.
I'll be quick. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your testimony on this. My question is, I know we've talked about this in previous sessions about potentially replacing Algebra 2 with financial literacy. My question is, why foreign language? Why was that the half credit you wish to replace?
I replaced foreign language because I think financial literacy is a life skill, and I believe a foreign language is a life skill. So I thought it was just more compatible with getting rid of a half a credit of foreign language. Okay, thank you. Yep.
Similar line on the question, because I support your bill. I remember basically the financial literacy I got from my mom when I was leaving the house was make sure all the bills are paid before you do anything else.
Right? That's pretty good.
I haven't always followed mom's advice. But I guess could we somehow make it so that it was flexible? Because Algebra 2, yeah, I'm with the good representative. I see where that might not be for everybody, but somebody might want 2 years of foreign language. So is there a way to make it flexible? Give the kid a choice.
Well, I do believe students still have a choice because you can take additional foreign language as an elective.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this question would be best directed towards you, but can you describe or do you have an idea for what the process on who's going to teach the class would look like? Is it going to require a new teacher being brought in? Is it a math teacher, or what training would be involved with the person teaching this new class?
You know what? There's some individuals behind me that are probably going to testify and be able to help you with that question. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. So my concern sort of echoes the foreign language question. So having a year and a half of foreign language is kind of an awkward number of, amount of language that you could receive, because 2 full years does get you to a certain level of proficiency after that second year. I think my big concern would be figuring out where it already is placed in our curriculum, which would be in social studies. So why don't we just make it a social studies requirement? I mean, one of the things that we do see is in an economics requirement that personal finance and financial literacy could already be part of that the curriculum. Is there any interest in potentially putting it in a place where it already is?
Well, I have a little visual right here. So right now, currently, personal finance is in economics, but as you look at my highlighted, what is that, 3 sentences?
Mm-hmm.
3 lines? Here is Tennessee and Utah. They are 5 pages. So it really needs to be a standalone course.
Which I'm cool with. I think that I would think it would be better fit though with maybe replacing economics instead of it being a totally separate unit in a department that does, replacing a credit that doesn't totally fit with that standard.
There's an individual behind me who is very
Might
much
talk
more
more about
educated
that.
than
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep. Great. I believe they're all on Zoom too.
Except for Alex Morris.
Oh yeah, it's a
from
Alex, yep.
Michigan Bankers Association. So if you guys want to switch seats and come on up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. We appreciate your time this morning. We do feel this is a very important bill, so I want to give a little testimony, and I think we can probably speak to some of the questions that the committee had as well. In Michigan and nationwide, today banks provide and disseminate financial education to children and adults. Through discussions with the administration, legislators, and every member of this panel, we've discovered a pretty clear consensus and agreement regarding the need for improved financial literacy in Michigan. This education is of paramount importance to the success of all Michigan citizens, as Representative Farrington spoke to a bit. Where do banks come in this? Bankers provide programming in schools across the country already to ensure that Michigan students understand the importance of differentiating wants versus needs, the importance of responsible budgeting, and the impact of interest, credit, and debt on long-term financial stability. But our industry's efforts cannot reach every Michigan student. How can we expect a new high school graduate, as Representative Farrington also alluded to a bit, to understand the long-term impact of student loans, credit card usage, interest rates, if they're not taught how? If they aren't getting it at home and they aren't getting it at school, where do they get it? With the spread of technology, banking and the exchange of money is constantly changing, as is education and the way that we consume education. We must prepare our students to become responsible and successful consumers in a 21st century economy. The time to act is now. Representative Farrington also alluded a bit to where Michigan has been in the last 30 or 40 years. It is critical now in the wake of economic recovery efforts aimed at mitigating the impacts of COVID-19 that Michigan passed this important legislation. House Bill 5190 provides not only our students, but the state an economic leg up, both in the short term and the long term. According to 2019 FDIC data, 5.4%, or nearly 7.1 million households in the United States do not have a bank or a credit union account. Not having a bank account incurs exorbitant fees, and often traps consumers who can least afford it into expensive cycles of payday lender, cash checking, and debt. The most effective way to combat these challenges and increase financial inclusion for every Michigan citizen is through robust education. Finally, and Rep. Beasley, this may speak to your question and to a number as well of the other questions that the panel had. Michigan is one of only 11 states, that requires foreign language for graduation. So let me say that again. There is the opportunity to take foreign language education in every state in the union, but Michigan is one of only 11 states that makes it a graduation requirement. Many states have a half or a full credit. It's 2 years required in Michigan. This bill would only take that down to 1.5. The purpose of public education is to prepare students for college, careers, and life beyond high school. If understanding the rules of engagement in financial services, how credit works, both for and against you, how to save, how to become a homeowner, understanding interest, managing wealth, and debt, are not foundational pieces that all Michigan graduates ought to have, then dismiss this bill. If you believe this should be a foundational part of becoming an adult, then we encourage you to join us at the Michigan Bankers Association, Representative Farrington, and the many others who you will hear from today in supporting House Bill 5190. I greatly appreciate the time. I have Patricia Herndon with me as well, also with the MBA, who I believe would like to say a few words as well.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. I wanted to add on, I think Representative Beeler had a great question kind of on how this would roll out, because we do have a lot of requirements and the education system has been strained, frankly. As we look at the possibilities of how to implement this new curriculum to the Michigan requirements, I think we should look additionally beyond just a teaching scenario where you have a teacher that's in the class, that we may have opportunity, given expansions in broadband, in online learning, how we've gone about teaching over the last year and a half, that there may be some other opportunities to offer this as an online class or a virtual class, which actually I think also would double check a box on virtual learning that all students need to have as well. So, when we look at the actual implementation of how to get this into the curriculum and making it easier for teachers and for schools to get it done, I think that we need to think a little bit more creatively, perhaps in some of those districts that may not have those resources or may not be able to step those resources up as quickly. We have seen through our banks that participate and do pretty robust financial literacy across the state and across the country, that sometimes online learning in this fashion, because of some of the role playing that takes place with budgeting and credit and outcomes, that sometimes that's a more effective tool and almost becomes a gaming educational experience for kids. So there are some real possibilities here. Ohio just passed a bill as we look at competitiveness and what we're doing. We've had conversations with some of our higher education institutions. Michigan State is doing some pretty robust education and looks for students now to have some foundation background in this. We can talk about physical fitness and fiscal fitness in the same realm, that it's very easy, or much easier for you to be successful when you have a foundational understanding. You still need to apply the discipline in both realms, but when we look at how we really address helping people across the spectrum become successful in understanding the rules of engagement of financial services, this is key to that process of becoming an adult. Questions?
Representative Carter?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you both for your testimony. I want to know, have you reached out to the education community for their input? Particularly, have you reached out to local school boards and ISDs, and asked them for their input on this? Have you?
As the association, we have not. We are supportive of the representatives' efforts, and I know that there's some ongoing discussion of coalition building so that we can make sure that we are identifying if there are hurdles to that, how we get past that, and how we all come together. I haven't talked to a single legislator in Lansing, including yourself, that has not felt that we need to do more in this space. So we are taking that step and look forward to additional coalition building to bring everyone to the table. Thank you.
And just so you know, we do have educators that are going to testify.
Okay,
up
thank you.
next.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you.
Representative Colazar?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm kind of trying to wrap my head around this because I taught economics, where some of the exact issues that you specified, student loan debt, credit card debt, what that looks like, how that can impact a student's life, I taught those very things. In addition, the school I taught at also had a financial literacy course that students could take for their fourth year of math, and a lot of kids opted to take that, their fourth year of math. So my question is, I'm just trying to make sure we're not reinventing the wheel here, because these things do exist in our curriculum as it stands right now.
I can start there if that's okay. Based on research in other states that have taken this approach, it's much more successful when it is what I will term a guaranteed opportunity, which I think I stole from Representative Farrington, for the students to really learn some of these pieces. I think the other piece Representative Farrington made pretty clear when she was showing what our curriculum currently looks like here in the state of Michigan and what some of the other states who do have a required course. It's much more robust, it's much more in-depth, and I think as you get to some of those more in-depth issues is where you're really teaching these kids how to be adults when it comes to financial literacy. I think some of those pieces are touched on from, and you would know much better than myself, Representative, as somebody who taught it, but there is more robust and depth to a course that is required, a curriculum that can be put together, because every student in the state will need to take that.
Excellent, thank you so much. Up next, joining us from Zoom, we have Derek D'Angelo, President of the Michigan Council on Economic Education and former National Personal Finance Teacher of the Year. So whenever you're ready, we're ready for you.
Thank you so much for allowing me to testify today via Zoom, Representative Farrington's story. hit home for me because my daughter turned 16 today. We got to go get a license, and those life skills are so important. We don't want to, put these kids out on the road without those 50 hours, without preparing them with what they need to be successful. And I feel very strongly about making sure that we have a personal finance guarantee for our students. The other day, I was buying Red Wing tickets for my son for Christmas. Don't tell him. And it's going to be a surprise. So one of the options was with Ticketmaster to use one of these payment services like AffiniPay, where you pay 4 installments and this amount of money and this fee, and make it so that if you don't have the money now, you can still afford it, right? It's a switch on credit cards that makes it even more accessible for our young people to get into debt. And this was just the kind of the hit home moment for me, that we need to make sure that we stay ahead of the curve on this changing landscape. And what I want you to do when you think about where we're at now versus where we want to be is what if we were designing our system from scratch? Would you include personal finance in the guarantees for Michigan students? And I think the community wants that. I think that if you go back to your constituents, that they would want that. I would want that over many other things. This bill says world language. Maybe there's some discussion needs to happen, but it needs to happen. It needs to get in the bill, or I'm sorry, it needs to get into the curriculum so that our students have access to this course as a guarantee. Not every school district is offering it, and the students with all the other requirements that might not be taking it, but they need to take it. I need my daughter to take a personal finance class more so than I need her to take a second year of a foreign language personally. Okay, so if that's not the solution, what is the solution? I implore you to continue the discussion and figure out where the best fit is. As far as who can teach it, because that was brought up, we've got a lot of different people that can teach the course in Michigan. We have any social studies teacher, we have any business certified teacher, any math teacher, family and consumer science teacher. So it gives the districts a lot of flexibility of who can teach the course. They probably, have the staff on hand that can already do that. Now, a personal finance course is going to be about giving these students freedom, future freedom, the freedom that you feel when you pay off that car loan, the freedom that you feel when you don't have debt weighing you down. We need to teach them the rules of the game, the credit scores with student loans. I don't want my daughter going off to college and graduating with $80,000 of student loans, because then the opportunity cost happens. And that's why we need econ, right? We need to teach them about opportunity costs. We need to say, okay, if you're paying off $80,000 of student loans for the next 15 years, you're not going to have any money to invest. And then we just have growing inequality, and it makes it a compounding problem. And talking about compounding, what about investing? And we want to make sure that all students understand the power of investing, and that's going to lead to more equality. And I really believe that by making this a guarantee, we make sure that all students get this. It's not just the students that have parents who are well off that really, have succeeded and can teach their students well, which I'm going to warn you on as a high school teacher who sat through parent-teacher conferences for 20-something years, and I just retired this past year. I'm going to tell you that parents are not comfortable talking to their students about finances. We need to change that, but they're not comfortable because they don't want to burden their child with financial matters. And so I think that the schools coming in is very important. And again, who are the students who need the guarantee? The students in Detroit Public Schools need it maybe more so than the students in Grosse Pointe. We need to make sure that it's inclusion for all students. And this really comes down to making better decisions, financial decisions, having that freedom, living a happier life. That's one of the things I focused on last year in the classroom a lot, that when I taught economics, that these classes are about making a happier life, the choices that you make, the decisions that you make. And when you talk about, okay, replacing econ with personal finance, that's concerning to me, because that's the decision making. That's where you're teaching the thinking. That's where you're teaching the economic way of thinking. That's where you're teaching about fiscal policy and taxing and spending. And that's where you're teaching about monetary policy in the Federal Reserve. And you're teaching the economic way of thinking. You're teaching thinking at the margin. You're teaching supply and demand, the basis for the tools that are going to help students make better personal finance decisions later in life. And so we have to, think about, can it just be woven in into an econ class? Well, I did my best to try to do that the whole time I've been teaching economics in my career, and it just isn't enough. As Representative Farrington said, our list of what we can get to in the time that we have, maybe 15 class periods out of 90 you can spend on personal finance issues versus other states like Ohio that have a whole course on it now, as Mr. Page raises his Ohio State class to just driving in a little bit, right? But we want to make sure that our students are not being left behind with personal finance. And I'm here to answer any questions you might have today. Thank you very much.
We do have one question for you from Representative Camilleri.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. D'Angelo. Would you be in favor of putting this credit requirement in the Social Studies Department?
I think it can fit in the social studies department. The question is where, what's the opportunity cost? What are you losing out on if you put this in? And I don't know. I think that's a bigger discussion as to what if we have to take something out. What do you take out? To me, if you reduce a requirement for world language from 2 years to 1.5, I also have a daughter who's in 8th grade. It's not going to change what she's going to take. But if you make a personal finance guarantee, she's going to take personal finance, and she's probably going to take 2 years of world language still, even if you reduce the requirement down to 1.5.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Up next, we have via Zoom Brian Page from the Next Generation Personal Finance. He's the Senior Director.
Good morning, Chair Hornborger, Vice Chair Paquette, members of the House Education Committee. Thanks for the opportunity to provide proponent testimony on Michigan House Bill 5190. As introduced, my name is Brian Page, and I'm the Senior Director of State Partnerships and Advocacy at Next Gen Personal Finance. We're a nonprofit organization that partner with more than 50,000 teachers across the country to provide comprehensive curriculum and effective professional development, all at no cost to schools or districts because we're funded through an endowment. I spent 15 years in the classroom at Reading High School in Ohio, and I was the 2011 Milken National Educator of the Year. For today, I will be presenting the NGPF for the NGPF Mission 2030 Fund, which is the 501c4 that supports the NGPF mission to guarantee that every high school student will cross that graduation stage empowered by a dedicated semester-long personal finance course. Over the past 2 years, North Carolina and Nebraska have passed a semester-long personal finance guarantee for all high school students. And right now, similar legislation is making its way through numerous other states. I am honored that on Thursday, I will stand beside Ohio Senator Wilson and Ohio Governor DeWine for the Ohio Senate Bill 1, which will also guarantee a semester-long personal finance class for every Ohio high school graduate. In a survey conducted between August 1st and August 5th in 2020, there was a question asked by the National Financial Educators Council to over 1,200 people. Do you think high school students should take personal finance courses in high school? More than 84% of people across the US believe that financial literacy should be taught in schools. I personally saw the same popularity in Ohio's legislative body. As Ohio Senate Bill 1 passed through the House Education Committee unanimously, it passed the House 94-1, and then passed the Ohio Senate unanimously. NGPF funds research each year to uncover who has access to financial education in more than 10,000 schools in the United States. Sadly, only 1.5% of Michigan students attend a school that ensures financial education for all, 1.5%. Representative Farrington, I thank you for recognizing such an imbalance and working with your colleagues to make this right, to guarantee a semester-long personal finance class for every Michigan high school student. Now, I feel the need to address a few things I heard earlier in testimony that Derek passed on to me. In working with multiple states, it has been my experience that there are multiple pathways to finding a creative way to add a personal finance class without adding to the overall requirements. The second is that online programs can supplement instruction for short periods of time. However, in regards to a full online class, we have seen an online program slip into legislation in Kentucky at the last minute. And unfortunately, it failed to move the needle for kids. That's probably the kindest way that I can describe what happened. Kentucky's current circumstances are not any better than Michigan's are right now. Finally, there was a mention of current personal finance standards and whether it is already being taught. Research from Dr. Carly Urban found that in schools that embed personal finance in an existing class, that it is not taught at all in 2 out of 3 instances. But what we do know from research, that stronger requirements lead to graduates making better financial decisions. I feel the need to highlight this point because rarely in the education world do we hold ourselves at such a high standard. We don't ask health teachers to measure the physical fitness as a graduation requirement for high school students. We are looking at the outcomes beyond just how well they test. How are they managing their money when they enter the workforce? So, and with that said, it is notable that financial literacy moves the needle in key areas. It reduces the likelihood of financial fragility, higher savings rates, more assets, higher credit scores, lower delinquency rates. They choose lower interest credit products. There's a decrease in the likelihood of carrying a credit card balance, and there's an increase in applications for need-based aid. In other words, it leads to positive financial behavior. Throughout my teaching career, I have seen the real-world life-altering impact a personal finance class had on the lives of students. It empowers students with 21st century survive and thrive skills, such as how to complete their FAFSA, open bank accounts, file tax returns, open Roth and custodial IRAs, and begin building their credit scores. The list of these singular choices learned in a class that have compounding effects for the rest of their lives occur almost daily in personal finance classes in other parts of the country, where state lawmakers have promised that every student will have to pass a personal finance class to graduate. And I am here today for Michigan students, so they have the same opportunities. I thank you again for the opportunity to provide proponent testimony, and I welcome the chance to address any questions that you may have at this time.
We do have one question for you from Representative Camilleri.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Page. For the other states that you mentioned that have added this requirement, what are they replacing in their curriculum?
North Carolina, I don't believe they replaced anything. And then Nebraska, I don't believe they replaced anything. I'll have to go back in North Carolina to be certain. It could have replaced a half credit or a full credit of allowance, but I don't think so. Ohio was a little trickier. In order to be able to provide for local control and to address multiple challenges that superintendents were facing and the needs of teachers in making sure that we're providing for students, the half credit is in lieu of either a half credit elective requirement or a half credit mathematics requirement for a class that is a higher level than Algebra 2. And the reason it could not replace Algebra 2 in Ohio is because there's an end of course exam required in Algebra 2, and there's a ripple effect that would occur by replacing the half credit of Algebra 2, knowing that they still would have to pass that end of course exam. It is my experience is in states where it's passed or in states where there's currently conversations and legislation introduced, it seems to be just a matter of solving other challenges that are existing that are making it more difficult for students to graduate, and using this as a tool to not only make kids financially literate, but also to address those challenges. And there seems to be a really strong push toward more common sense, practical skills for students to graduate. Whereas 10 years ago, there was such a thrust in preparing students for college. Today, it seems to be college and careers. And so the pendulum seems to be swinging back a bit.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Oh, wait, we have one more question. Representative Carter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kind of follow up to Rep. Camilleri's question. To your knowledge, sir, has any state replaced foreign language with the, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yes, thank you. Has any state, to your knowledge, replaced foreign language with personal finance?
To my knowledge, no, but I don't want to mislead you. Very few states require foreign language, and I'm unaware of a state that requires as much as Michigan. There could be a couple of others. I know there are no other states that require more than 2 credits for graduation.
Thank you so much.
Sure thing.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, we appreciate your testimony. Up next, we have Amanda Volz, and she is a teacher from St. Clair High School, joining us via Zoom. Thank you for joining us. Whenever you're ready, you can go ahead.
Hello. Thank you, Chair Hornberger, Vice Chair Paquette, and members of the House Education Committee for the opportunity today to advocate on behalf of Michigan students. I'm Amanda Volz. I'm a teacher at St. Clair High School in St. Clair, Michigan, and I've been teaching personal finance for 19 years to high school students. I developed an elective personal finance course within my high school, and due to demand, it has grown through the years from a 1-section, 1-semester course to 5 sections of a full year course. I strongly support Michigan House Bill 5190 and believe every student should be guaranteed a financial education before graduating with a high school diploma. One of the benefits of teaching and living in a small town in Michigan is how often I run into alumni of my school. And one afternoon, my kids and I were visiting a local park, and a recent graduate of St. Clair High School excitedly approached me to tell me about her first year of college. She had to take out some student loans, but she worked all summer budgeting her money to focus on paying off her loans so she could start each year fresh and debt-free. She is living the lessons she learned in her personal finance class. This is a universal class. It touches everything we do in life. It's not just for the college bound or the student entering the trades or the student entering the workforce. It's for every student. This is the course that everyone wishes they had when they find themselves in financial distress. And it's the class that will prevent many students from finding themselves in a dire situation. At the end of so many financial documents, there's typically an acknowledgement. Click this box to indicate you understand the terms of the agreement. This is the class that ensures that when students take out a student loan, buy a car, get a mortgage, sign a lease, invest through an app, or any number of other financial transactions that required them to acknowledge they understand what they're doing, this is the class that makes sure they can answer yes. They understand the complex financial system that exists in the 21st century, and they're prepared to meet the challenges of that system. In teaching this class for 19 years, I've witnessed the positive impact of financial education has had on student lives. This is the class where parents sat down at parent-teacher conferences and were so excited to tell me that their daughter approached them to open up a Roth IRA to begin investing for her financial future. This is the class in which a former student reaches out to me and tells me he still uses the budgeting tool from my class, and he's purchased a home and started his own business at the age of 21. This is the class with an alumni who I helped step-by-step set up a Roth IRA because she wanted to be like all of the examples that I used in class. And this is the class with parents who excitedly tell me that their son is now asking about their credit score, and they thank me for teaching this information and opening the financial dialogue in their household. My passion for personal finance education and the support of this bill is simple. It's a belief that no one should leave high school without a financial education. This is the class that every student in Michigan needs, and House Bill 5190 will guarantee that all Michigan students graduate from high school with a comprehensive financial education that will have both an immediate and a positive long-term impact on their future. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I don't see any questions for you, and I appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up on Zoom, we have Evan Singh, a student from Chelsea High School. So Evan, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead.
All right, hi, my name is Evan Singh. I'm a current senior at Chelsea High School, where I've taken the personal finance course and have also been a member of our national finalist personal finance challenge team. So I'm familiar a bit with Mr. D'Angelo. Thank you sincerely for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of public school students across Michigan. I really appreciate it. And I'm very excited that you're considering this impactful change to Michigan public education, and I hope that my testimony will encourage it. So to begin, personal finance is, in my opinion, truly a course like few others. I think topics taught in there are immediately and necessarily applicable in the lives of every single student that takes it. For example, the difference between a Roth IRA and a regular IRA, which can save students thousands of dollars down the line, is much more important and much more impactful, in my opinion, than knowing the difference between mitosis and meiosis, which is something I had to learn in my biology class. So I think it's just as important that students learn that and be educated on that as in biology. Personally, for me, the most important topic that we covered was budgeting. I think staying on top of payments and knowing how to make sure you can handle everything you're taking on is something too vital not to be taught to every single school, not to be taught to every single student in every school, especially today where I can tap a button on my phone and buy $200 sneakers that I think are super cool. I think it's really important to have financial prudence, and requiring every student to take a personal finance course in Michigan is a great way to make sure that people know what they're doing, can budget their money out, and are making responsible decisions for the future. Also, this was touched on earlier, I believe, but for many high school students who don't intend to pursue higher education, a mandatory course in personal finance is the only way that many of them are going to learn prudential financial skills and strategies. And when I think of many of my classmates who are considering entering the workforce or even starting their own business, it's truly a shame that not all of them will have been exposed to wise practices of money management and financial stability and investing. Making personal finance a required course would change this and provide a foundation for financial intelligence for every student in Michigan, no matter their intended future. It is an honor to be able to represent public high school students in Michigan. I appreciate the committee's consideration of my testimony. Thank you.
I don't see any questions for you. We appreciate your testimony. Thank you so much for joining us today. Up
Thank you.
next, I believe we have Kylie Mitchell-Wells joining us in person, yay, from the Belmer Group from Huntington Bank.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Committee, for hearing my testimony today. Again, I'm Kylie Mitchell-Wells. I am the Executive Director of Balmer Group's Southeast Michigan office. We are a philanthropic organization, and currently, under my advisement, we've given out $150 million over the last 4 years. I'm also representing as an advisory board member for Huntington Bank. The resources that I give on a daily basis to support kids and families is just filling the gap. The decisions that you can make today for personal financial management for all students is a must. I had the pleasure, Representative O'Malley, to have parents who taught me. When I was 8 years old, second grade, I didn't know how to borrow. And my dad said, take a look at this ledger. It was a checkbook. He said, let's work on getting you to understand how to use money to better understand math. Then I was the 13-year-old who sat at my parents' table and helped my dad with his taxes. And now I'm a certified tax professional for over 25 years. I am the kid who truly benefited from having personal financial management, but it was given to me by my parents. The kids and families that we support at Balmer Group, oftentimes they don't have parents like mine. I'm just filling a gap with $150 million. But what you can do as government is scale it to where every kid, no matter what they have at home, will understand what they need to go out into the world and make strong financial decisions. Thank you for your time today.
Any questions? Excellent.
Thank you.
Wishing to speak and opposing the bill, Bob Kefjan from Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals. That's for you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Bob Kefjan. I'm the Associate Director for Government Relations with the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals. I am here today to speak in opposition to House Bill 5190. MASSP recognizes the importance of personal finance and financial literacy education. We believe that these are crucial concepts for students to learn and master during their K-12 careers, and that our schools need to play a role in teaching this to students. But we do not support imposing financial literacy or personal finance as a new graduation requirement on students. We do not believe that requiring students to complete a half-credit course at the high school level is the best or only option to teach financial literacy and personal finance, and we would urge the committee to consider the logistical hurdles this bill would create for students. Most importantly, for those students who are planning to attend a four-year college or university, 2 credits of world language is considered the minimum that most universities would require. Some competitive colleges and universities ask for even more. In other words, for college-bound students, this bill is not credit neutral. Rather, it imposes an additional half-credit requirement on them that they are going to have to find a way to fit into their already crowded high school schedules. I would also point out that as written, this new mandate could not be waived or amended by a personal curriculum, even if it were appropriate for the student. As you've already heard today from other speakers, schools are finding ways to teach financial literacy without this requirement and without a standalone course. You heard about the successes they're having in St. Clair and Chelsea. Other high schools require students to complete a senior seminar, which includes a financial literacy component. Others incorporate personal finance into their economics and business coursework. And others, still others, embed elements of financial literacy and personal finance at various points and in various courses throughout their K-12 coursework. A couple of speakers have compared this requirement to driver's education. That's an apt comparison, but I would note that we do not require schools to teach students driver's education as a condition of graduation. Instead of a new mandate, we believe the solution is to give schools more flexibility and options. For example, this bill could be amended to allow financial literacy and personal finance to serve as a permissible substitute for world language, similar to the approach taken in House Bill 4590. Alternatively, the committee could look toward the model used in House Bills 4930 through 32, known as the 21st Century Skills Bills, which have broad support from education and business groups. Regardless, I would urge the committee to consider a different approach to this issue than the one currently proposed in House Bill 5190. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So far, we just have one question from Representative Green.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for your input and your perspective on this. It's very helpful. Could you clarify your comments in regarding the 2 years of foreign language in the regard of, are you saying that it is more important that we train every student so that they can get into a highly competitive university than it is for us to train every student to have the skill of finances?
So what I'm saying, Representative, and I think a previous speaker referenced opportunity cost, right? The idea of if you do this, then you can't do that. That's a great example with this bill. By requiring every student to complete this half-credit course, you're taking away an opportunity for them to do something else. Most four-year colleges and universities like to see at least 2 years of foreign language on a student's transcript. U of M likes to see 4, MSU likes to see 3. In other words, students who are trying to get into a four-year college, not every student, but students who are trying to get into a four-year college, already need to fit this coursework into their schedules. So if you're reducing the world language requirement to add a half credit of personal finance, for students who are seeking to get into a four-year college, you're not actually reducing any requirements. You're adding an additional half credit requirement.
Can I follow up?
Yeah, please.
So how do out-of-state students get into the University of Michigan?
How do they get into the University of Michigan?
If they don't have the requirement to have the foreign languages?
Sure, they compete and get into the University of Michigan.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your testimony. So I want to clarify, going to your point about the foreign language, if students didn't take foreign language in another state, simply now they have to take it in college, correct? Whereas in Michigan, you take those 2 years, generally it gets waived by the university, and what you're saying is that if they have this half credit personal finance plus the 2 year or plus the, the 2 years that a college would want for foreign language, it further limits their options while in high school, correct? Because there's another semester that they got to take this course, and now whether it be an AP course they may want to take or something like that, it limits their ability to take those other courses, correct?
Right, exactly. You're talking about the opportunity cost. So you're limiting your ability to take other options. And it goes beyond completing 2 years of world language in college. It's about competitiveness even getting in the door, right? It's about that admissions process. So.
Representative Moose?
Mine's more to the point, and based on our three kids who go to top universities, they don't actually waive it if you have college, high school foreign languages. You have to test out of it, and all three of my kids who are at grade schools tested it 101 after 2 years, after 3 years of foreign language in high school, just a point of clarification.
And speaking as somebody who studied German for 10, yeah, I mean, it's high school foreign language isn't about getting you out of a college credit. It's about preparing you to be successful once you get there. Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There being no further business before the committee, the House Education Committee will stand adjourned.